They found his DNA on a victim's clothing in 2014. After 130 years, we finally know who Jack the Ripper was. Or do we? Because what if I told you the most famous serial killer in history might have actually been a woman? What if everything you think you know about this case is completely wrong? What if the real killer escaped to America and kept murdering? Stick around because in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you evidence that will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Jack the Ripper. Yo, what's up everyone? If you're not subscribed, you need to hit that button right now because this is the most insane deep dive I've ever done. We're talking DNA evidence that scientists are fighting about. We're talking royal conspiracies. We're talking about a female serial killer who hid in plain sight for over a century. This isn't your typical Jack the Ripper story. This is going to change everything. Let's get into it. Okay, so imagine this. It's 1888. You're walking through the streets of London at night. Fog everywhere. Gas lamps barely lighting the way. And somewhere in the darkness, there's a killer. A killer who's about to become the most famous murderer in history. But here's the crazy part. We still don't know who they were. And I say they because, guys, one of the theories we're covering today suggests Jack the Ripper might have actually been a woman. Yeah, you heard that right. A woman. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, let me give you the basics because some of you might not know the full story. Between August and November 1888, at least 5 women were brutally murdered in an area of London called Whitechapel. These weren't just regular murders, okay? These were absolutely horrific. The killer would slash their throats, mutilate their bodies, and in some cases, remove internal organs with what looked like surgical precision. The police were completely stumped. They had never seen anything like this before. This was before fingerprinting, before DNA, before any of the forensic stuff we have today. They were basically working blind. The 5 main victims, the ones we're pretty sure were all killed by the same person, were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. All of them were poor women who had to work as prostitutes just to afford a place to sleep at night. And that's important to understand because Whitechapel back then was basically hell on earth. We're talking extreme poverty, overcrowding, crime everywhere, and streets so dark you could barely see your hand in front of your face. Now the killer sent letters to the police and newspapers. Some were definitely fake, written by attention seekers, but a couple of them might have been real. One letter was signed Jack the Ripper, and that's literally where the name comes from. Before that letter, the killer didn't even have a nickname. The letter writer said he loved his work and wasn't going to stop. He even sent a package with half of a human kidney in it, claiming it came from one of his victims. Whether that was real or not, we still don't know for sure. The murders stopped in November 1888 after the killing of Mary Jane Kelly. Just stopped. No more Ripper murders. The killer vanished. For over 130 years, people have been trying to figure out who did it. Hundreds of suspects, thousands of theories, books, movies, TV shows, but no definitive answer until recently. Because, guys, modern science is starting to crack this case wide open. Let me paint you a picture of what Whitechapel was actually like because it's important for understanding how this killer operated. We're talking about one of the poorest areas in London, about 78,000 people crammed into less than a square mile, most of them living in what were called doss houses, basically flop houses where you paid 4 pence to sleep in a bed for the night. If you didn't have 4 pence, you slept on the street or in a doorway. The streets were a maze of narrow alleys and courtyards, perfect for someone who wanted to kill without being seen. Gas lamps were few and far between, so at night these streets were pitch black. And the police presence? Basically non-existent in the really rough areas. The women who were killed weren't out on the streets because they wanted to be. They were desperate. They needed money for a bed, for food, for gin to numb the pain of their lives. So they'd go out at night trying to find clients. And that's when the Ripper struck. Quick, brutal, and then gone into the darkness. Modern criminal profilers have actually mapped out where all the murders happened, and they've determined that the killer almost certainly lived or worked right in the middle of that area. This wasn't someone passing through. This was someone who knew every alley, every shortcut, every dark corner. Someone who could kill and disappear in seconds because they knew the territory that well. All right, now let's talk about the